And we're back for the second part of our overview on the SizeUp Nebraska tool, which is a decision-making tool that's free to entrepreneurs, business owners, and any individual that wants to get better data on business, the competitive environment, and competitive entry in the local marketplace. So we've got back with us Mario with SizeUp and James, who's part of the economic development team at OPPD. And they're going to continue the overview with us of how to use this tool to your advantage as you're making wiser business decisions. What else should we show folks? So imagine that, the typical listener to our podcast is somebody who's running a business, owning a business, or thinking about doing so. So what are some of the other features and benefits that folks should be aware of?
Sure. So I think the thing that's really important for them to know is this is not generic information. This is about you, your existing business in your existing location or where you think you're going to locate or expand to. This is not something that isn't specific to you. So we're just looking at revenue right now, but that only paints part of the picture, right? So if we could imagine, we could look at the overall trends within a given industry. So we can show it at whatever you think your trade area is. So maybe you're not a national business and you just want to focus on the state. So you could see that, obviously, look, there's a dip here. I wonder why. Maybe there was a global pandemic happening. However, we can actually see that trend was not the trend. The trend is for entrepreneurship at unprecedented levels. The level of innovation that's happening in this country is amazing. And you can see that 192 new restaurants started in the city, 230 in the county. So if we were looking at a different category like DVD and movie rentals, right? For those of us who remember late charges at Blockbuster, you just see that cascading all the way down to the right and go, maybe this isn't the industry that I want to be in. Or perhaps if you're a coffee shop and you notice that people are eating out more because you're looking at the cafe category, you pivot. And you take the data that shows you that people are trying to eat healthier and start adding food to your menu. It just depends on what your unique value proposition is or the type of service that you want to generate. But you can see the trends and then you can switch between adjacent industries if you want to see how things are moving. We can look at salary information, which is oftentimes opaque for small businesses. I put in $20,000, but you can actually see counties where you'd expect to pay more and less for people within a given industry. And we can look at the number of employees. So I put in 15 people for this restaurant. That's actually about 3/4 the size of the average restaurant for the city of Omaha. And you can see where restaurants are going to be bigger and smaller, depending on where you are. So this gives you a sense of what you would need to do to be competitive, versus that typical restaurant. And we get, right now you're seeing it's the metro level, but we can look at it at a much more hyper-local level when we get into the next tool. So a lot of this information, cost effectiveness, right? So this is where it's really unique because you're like, well, how did I generate this? Because you gave us information about revenue, number of employees and salary. And now you can understand where you were below average, right? In terms of revenue versus a typical restaurant. But when you look at the number of employees you have, you're doing more with less. So you're actually 33% above average in cost effectiveness, even though your revenue was quote unquote below average. And this is where you start to see the story about your business and your unique operating context. And so we can look at revenue per capita, and this is super valuable because we're looking at revenue per capita and then total revenue. So we're seeing the households that are spending the money and then the actual places, the businesses that are receiving it. So if you're trying to dive into what's happening, hey, maybe I want to visit this business in this area to see why they're making more money or why this household where there's high expenditures in that category are going to a different area. Is it because they're underserved and that's an opportunity for you to locate there? Or is it maybe because the businesses in that area are underperforming? And then you can figure out why your value, product, service could succeed in that area. And you can make a lot more money than those other businesses are because of something you're doing. So you can compare that directly here. And then you can also look at, for instance, local turnover, which again, for small businesses, if you just lose one person a year and you think, oh my goodness, I have 1/10 of my workforce for my 10-person company that I have to replace, and you think that's a weakness for your business, when you look at things through the lens of data, objectively, what you thought was a weakness for your business, if you're in the restaurant business, you should be losing about 1/5 or 2/10 of your workforce. So you thought it was a weakness, but you're actually keeping more than your fair share of that talented workforce. It's a testament to your product, service, compensation, culture that's letting you keep more people than you technically should, statistically speaking. And so when you look at healthcare costs or workers' compensation, you can get some of this information that, again, unless you have a professional HR team working for you, you might not even think about. And so this is an opportunity to look at, where you might get cost savings. And then in the summary view, you can get an entire dashboard. And you can say, hey, I'm thinking about, expanding my hours that are open. So maybe I add an extra hour or two on the weekends or something. And you might predict that you go up to, say, 2 million, 20 million. That would be fantastic for an extra 2 hours.
You never know.
You never know. It's a crucial 2 hours during the commute time for your restaurant that sells coffee with, the red eye espresso shots. But you'd have to hire more people. So maybe you add in, an additional, one person for those extra 2 hours. And then you could actually run scenarios and go, oh, what's the effect on my cost effectiveness? There's an economy of scale. I went from 33% to 38% in terms of my cost effectiveness. So you can kind of run through all sorts of different scenarios with this tool, and then also dive in to see hyperlocal information in terms of which areas are really engaged with your product or service.
What's the cost for us to use this?
Well, this is something I won't comment on. I will turn that over to James for his answer.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It was a great alley-oop, and I'm going to try to dunk it in. But
okay.
So the cost of this service is absolutely free to all of our business customers. And even if you're not a business customer, it's free to you as well. It was one thing that we thought it was imperative that we can have this data available to everyone at no cost. We know access to this kind of data usually would cost you a lot of money or a lot of time to find. But we just wanted to skip past that and help our entrepreneurs and small businesses in the area.
Thank you. And how do we get to this? How do we get into SizeUp Nebraska?
Sure. So the easiest way for it is go ahead and visit the Economic Development Department's website on OPPD that you didn't know exists, but now you do. And you'll see that there's a video talking about how SizeUp Nebraska works, and then there's a link right over to the tool. And clicking on that link will bring you right to nebraska.sizeup.com, where you can access this information 24/7. And I should point this out. The reason that this is an online tool and available on the internet, I mean, they could have had kiosks, at various places or with the chamber at City Hall, but they know that you as entrepreneurs, as business owners, are so busy Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And we know that the hours are much more than that. Providing your product and service, that for you to be able to engage with this type of information needs to be available when you have the time. Right. So that's evenings, that's weekends, that's before hours. So it is available 24/7 as a starting place for you when you need it.
Good to know. Thank you. And if I recall correctly, when this first got rolled out, I think I ended up Googling SizeUp Nebraska and found it that way as well. I like that you can go to the economic development page of OPPD and see the video as well. Probably a quick overview tutorial that gets people in the right frame of mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're getting pretty close to the end of our time here, but let me also ask you, anything that's coming down the road that might be added to or expanded, or just new things that we should know about in regards to this tool?
Sure. So we continue to innovate based on the feedback that we get from our clients and our end users. So please don't be shy about reaching out to James and his team and letting us know, what you find valuable. We're constantly trying to add information to make it more meaningful and useful. So one of the things that you can see here that we didn't talk about earlier was we have heat maps for consumer expenditures within given industries. So if you wanted to say, look, you're a coffee shop as opposed to a general restaurant, we could look at, alcoholic, that's a bar. That's a different category, but we can look at food away from home. And then again, if you're a coffee shop, it could be breakfast and brunch, or it can be other categories. And what you'll see is we can actually turn on those categories and you can see an overlay of where all of those industries are and your potential customers. there's a lot more that you can do in terms of the tool. So here you go. Now we're looking at lunch specifically as opposed to breakfast and brunch.
Day parts.
So you can see where people are spending that money, both in terms of aggregate spending. So now we're just looking at this as total expenditures, and that's a totally valid way of looking at things. But we're providing you the tools to analyze things the way that you want. So maybe you're interested more in household spending. So now we just switch that to averages, and you can see what the households are spending on lunch. So you can slice and dice the information in the way that it suits your business plan, your marketing plan, your go-to-market plan, whatever it may be.
Pretty good, pretty granular. Yeah,
it can get pretty granular because you can literally see what the Elmwood Park neighborhood is doing versus the West Side,
right?
Or if you're willing to cross state lines, maybe what even is happening over on the other side of the river. One of the things that I'll point out, I'm going to cheat here, just because I happen to know our data pretty well. We do have to license a lot of our data. And so one of the things that we have started providing there we go. I found one right here. Is we're providing information about minority and women-owned businesses. So you can actually click on the information, get more information about them. So if you are looking to source from women, minorities, or in some cases identify home-based businesses as well, that information now appears on the info card associated with that business. Gotcha. So that's something new that we have presently. We are working on identifying certified veteran-owned businesses, so on and so forth. So it's something that we do. And the best way to keep up with that is to subscribe to your podcast, to subscribe to James, email alerts and everything else, because we communicate via our partners, and then they can reach out to their end users. So if you don't mind me plugging both of your communications channels, hopefully that's something valuable that your listeners can do.
This is very savvy of you, Mario.
I try.
Thank you. I guess we found our clip out now where Mario plugs us, right, James?
But hey, I think he's done this before. I think
just a couple of times.
And I don't want to get too far along, but the advertising tool. So let's say that you were trying to figure out where to advertise. Let's say that you're, because I know you're the franchise guy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to confess, is the guy who, you can't tell it, but there's a bit of a belly here. It might be a burger belly. And so if I were looking at burger restaurants or something along those lines, while it can be useful for advertising, it could also be useful for someone who's helping people analyze the franchise that they might want to invest in or buy.
Absolutely.
Because you can also look at this way. This is and I know James has heard this joke a million times. We've been working together for a while, but this is total revenue. So I call this the Jerry Maguire way of thinking of advertising, right? It's Rod Tidwell screaming, "Show me the money," which is a totally great way to think about that. But maybe you have a special, organic, locally grown beef, right? And your value proposition is different. So maybe you want to look at 20 miles. So you can customize these filters. Maybe you're going to charge more for that burger. So you're targeting higher income households. And so you can target your unique demographic. Maybe you have a playscape, right, at your burger restaurant. And so you're kind of trying to go to people with families. So you can customize this analysis, and then you're going to find those zip codes that match that specific criteria for the type of business that you're doing. Or you can even do what I do, which is I try to make my life easier. So I want to look at underserved markets. And now I'm looking at areas where there's a difference between the level of revenue that's being collected by burger restaurants and the household expenditures that are occurring in that area. So altogether, these tools can help inform one another to help optimize some of the decisions and also the questions that you might be asking. Yeah. So I hope this will be helpful to you in your own professional endeavors, working with some of your franchisees.
Well, and I like how you wrap that up with, if you're working with any kind of advisor on making an important business decision, whether that's an expansion or whether that's a market feasibility study or just trying to run the numbers, right, putting together projections, there's no reason you and that advisor shouldn't be working together, whether that's a franchise broker or whether that's a CPA or a business coach, a coach from SCORE, opportunity to get in front of the screen together, go to SizeUp Nebraska, and start running some of that data together.
And we recognize that people ideally are working offline with their partners or even their banker or their advisor.
Right.
And so any of the reports that you see, I just clicked on the PDF button here. You can now see all of that information right here that you can then turn into your marketing or business plan or loan application. And you can see that we took all of the filters that I put in there. And now it's also giving you the breakdown of those particular demographic characteristics that were really important to you and providing them so you know exactly where to advertise.
Right.
Now, whether you advertise on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the newspaper, a billboard, that comes from your expertise or your advisor's expertise on your industry and the market that you're working in.
Great. Well, that's a good place to wrap it. When you're ending it on advertising and where to spend and where to invest your dollars, makes a lot of sense. So, Mario and James, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today and share this new tool, this new platform that's available to folks in the local area. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. And James, one more thing, though. I think in our conversations, there was an ask that OPPD has, which is you made an investment in this, but now what needs to happen in order for that investment to continue?
We need people to use the tool. Use the tool. Just go in there, play around. It's accessible. You can get it on your laptop, your iPad, your cell phone. Go in there, just play with the tool, input numbers. I've done it a few times. Mario's done it a few times. People around me have done it a few times. Just go in there, look at the data. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the type of data that's in there, the type of data that you can access. And by the way, I know a lot of the searches were around Douglas County, Omaha Metro, but as we are a 13 county utility, we cover the 13 counties. You can access this data from anywhere within our territory, our 13 county territory. So go in there, just input some data, look at the different tools and features available to you, and then let me know what you think.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that. And having used it myself, I would agree. Just playing with it and seeing the new features, it's the best way to get used to it. So, well, thank you both so much, Mario and James, for this detailed overview on what the SizeUp Nebraska tool is all about. Hopefully our listeners took some information out of this that included their ability to go in and play with this. There's no cost to it. You can get to it at nebraska.sizeup.com or just Google SizeUp Nebraska, and it'll get you into the tool and you can play with it. And as James said at the end there, they want you to use this. OPPD made this investment so that we can use it, make better, smarter business decisions, whether we're thinking about getting into business, whether we're thinking about growing an existing business or just operating an existing business in a more efficient fashion. So go ahead and scan the QR code if you have additional questions and you want to get in touch with us so that we can get you those answers. And of course, always make sure to spread the word about our podcast, Heartland Franchise Guy. That means subscribe, follow, and share with anybody who you feel would gain value or see value in the podcast, both on SizeUp Nebraska or any of the other podcasts in our archives. So that's a wrap for another episode of the Heartland Franchise Guy. Thanks again to both James and Mario for being our guests today. And we will see you all again here on another episode of the Heartland Franchise Guy.